Olmec times, which takes us back at least to 1500 BC, probably quite a bit earlier than that, whereas the Aztecs are 1500 AD, so there's 3,000 years between the Aztecs and the Olmecs, and that same system of ideas is running through all of those cultures.
And the Mayans had a name for it as well?
Kukulkan.
And what do you think that plumed serpent was?
I think it's very clear from the accounts that have survived that what he's associated with are two things in particular. One of them, he's a god of peace. He's not a war god. And the other thing that he's primarily about is giving the gifts of civilization. This is what you human beings need to know in order to move on to the next level. That is the function and the role of Quetzalcoatl. And there are very similar, we could refer to them as civilizing heroes, who are found in other cultures and other locations. Osiris in Egypt plays that role as a bringer of civilization. There's hardly a culture in the ancient world that doesn't remember a time far back in remote prehistory when some kind of supernaturals or advanced human beings, and I prefer the latter, that some kind of advanced human beings were involved in a project to disseminate civilization. I mentioned the Tucano in the Amazon, who are big drinkers of ayahuasca. The Tucano have a fascinating origin myth. They say that the origin myth states specifically that their ancestors were brought to the Amazon. They were brought to the Amazon by a group of supernaturals who included the daughter of the sun and an individual called the helmsman who steered the serpent canoe in which this settlement mission in the Amazon was performed. And what these so-called supernaturals did was they brought the ancestors of the Tucano to the Amazon and they showed them the best places to settle, the best places where they might find hunting, the best places where they might create a village, the best places for agriculture. And then they left. But they left them behind one gift, and that gift was ayahuasca.
Wow.
That's the story of the origin myth of the Tucano. And it sounds to me rather like the other side of the story of that DNA signal in the Amazon, that a group of people were deliberately settled in the Amazon by human beings who they chose to regard as supernaturals. That's what makes sense of it to me.
When I interrupted you to talk about Quetzalcoatl, what were you about to say?
I can't remember.
Oh.
I'm in California. I've been smoking lots of dope, you know.
We were talking about different things in the Amazon. Should we rewind and figure out what we said?
Yeah, the serpent god you were talking about.
Before Quetzalcoatl, before that. I have another question. The Olmecs, you were talking about the genetics of these people that live in Native Americans, that they vary widely. But the Olmecs seem to have very similar features, the thick lips, the wide noses. Why do we think that is?
Well, this is part of a curious mystery that is not unconnected to the genetic mystery. It's been known by archaeologists for quite a long time that there are anomalous skulls in parts of Brazil, which appear to show very strongly Polynesian or African features, very much like the features that we see on the Olmec heads. And a number of archaeologists who got into trouble with their colleagues for this have used that to argue many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, that the settlement story of the Americas is much more complicated than we've realized. And what the DNA is doing is it's telling us that there was something really weird happened with settlement. You see, what happened with those African or Polynesian-looking skulls was that they were tested for DNA when DNA technology was not as advanced as it is today. And what that DNA showed was that they were more closely related to modern Native Americans than they are to any other people in the world. So the notion that there was some connection with Polynesia or Africa was dismissed. But now that we have very firm evidence of an Australasian genetic signal, Australian Aborigines, Papua New Guinea, Melanesians, with those kind of features, now that we have the genetic evidence that is found in the Amazon, we have to go back to that old evidence and reconsider it.
Wow. Yeah, I would love to find out what that is. They've always fascinated me. The Olmecs, it's always been such a strange image, the large heads with the helmets on them, and how do they universally look like that? I mean,
all of the features are very, very similar.
Wow.
They're very, very, very similar.
And always with the helmets.
And almost always, I won't claim that every single Olmec head has a helmet of it, because I think I've seen one that didn't. It's quite a while ago since I explored the Olmec area. But what's fascinating about them is they are supposedly the first high civilization of Central America, that they create structures on a massive scale, that you can see connections between them and the later Maya. That whole mystery of the Mayan calendar was clearly inherited from the Olmecs. It wasn't something the Maya made up. The Olmecs used that same symbolism. So the Mayan calendar is actually an Olmec calendar. And if we then consider the possibility that the Olmecs may just be the latest, the earliest surviving manifestation of that calendar, it could go back much further than that.
Do you plan on having any debates with people that oppose these ideas?
Well, it was interesting on your very show, Joe, to have the debate that involved Michael Shermer, who's the editor of The Skeptic magazine, and some colleague of his who came in online, who I got a bit annoyed with, and myself and my great friend and colleague, the genius Randall Carlson, and I felt that was a very useful debate. I felt that it's possibly the first time that those of us on the alternative side of the argument about history were given an opportunity really to put our evidence forward and to confront so-called skeptics. Well, so-called, that's what he calls himself, Michael Shermer, with this evidence. And obviously I'm biased, but I don't feel that he fielded the situation particularly well. I don't think mainstream archaeology came out of that looking really good. I think it came out of that looking rather ignorant and uninformed. And a man like Michael Shermer, who is a professional skeptic, cannot begin to match the knowledge of a man like Randall Carlson, who has devoted his whole life to walking the walk of the geology of the end of the Ice Age in North America. And that showed on that debate. So I think the debate was worth doing. I think it showed that the alternative side isn't just wishy-washy stuff out there on the fringes of things, that there are those of us working in this field who are using really solid information and who our project is to rewrite history. And we're not going to do that with slight information. It has to be solid information. I think we had the opportunity on your show to say that solid information is there. I'm not claiming it was a complete victory for the alternative side. Michael Shermer is a smart guy, and he put forward some good arguments too. And there were constructive aspects of that debate, which I appreciated. I'd like to